Welcome to another episode of the Trees and Lines podcast. Today we're talking with Amanda Opp, the right-of-way supervisor for Flathead Electric Cooperative. Amanda talks with us today about her experience as a graduate and now facilitator of the Utility Vegetation Management Professional Development Program, as well as the challenges they have been facing as a co-op in the industry. Have a listen and hope you enjoy. Welcome, Amanda. We're excited to have you join us today.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Good. Well, glad you want to be here. Why don't we start by just getting a little bit of background, get to know you. Tell us a little bit about what you've done, where you are, and what you're doing today.
Gosh, I am not sure how long and in depth to go here. So I'll start out by saying my background is civil engineering. So I am an engineer, and I came to the utility arborist into the industry through GIS. Actually, I worked in GIS with my utility for 4 years, and I took our paper workflows and made them digital. So then I was asked if I wanted to do that with the Vegetation Management department because they were using paper workflows still, and did that and kind of found a home with the tree people here. And it's such a great team. The background, I work for a cooperative, and so we work on tight budgets, and kind of our business model is a little different than investor owned, and we're still trying to find some forward motion in our program with keeping our members happy, which can be challenging. It's kind of has a little duality to it. But yeah, we have 6 tree crews here at Flathead Electric, 2 in-house for contract crews, and 2 utility foresters.
And you're located right in the heart of Montana, right?
Right in the heart of Montana. Glacier Park's in our backyard, so we have some very diverse issues here. So
before we get to questioning you here,
that's why.
let me just say congratulations. I see you're a new member of the board at the Utility Arborists Association.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Oh, that's
Congratulations.
A big deal.
I am so excited to join that group and learn everything I can and help in every way I can.
So Amanda, are you? So you said GIS is your back. By the way, I'm an engineer as well, but not a practicing one. I just have the degree. I have to always caveat that.
Yep, same.
So nobody asks me any questions, and I don't feel like anyway. So GIS is your kind of like bread and butter, and is that sort of in every one of your roles, has that been the primary angle and sort of lens that you approach a lot of this industry and the work with?
Absolutely. I feel like there's so much capability within our GIS, and when you really know the meat and potatoes of GIS software, we use Esri, which is probably the major player in the game. When you know how to use that software, you can do things that you never imagined with it. And so we administer all of our own vegetation management through our GIS and have created it from scratch and sort of a ground up effort. And that's just the cooperative way and an effort to save money from expenses. We've built that. And so we track everything through that and get all our metrics through that. So,
it's, I won't get into it here on today's podcast, but Phil, myself, and a couple of our other leaders are in the midst of working on a potential solution for the co-op and the municipal market. Basically a product, I'll just very top line talk about a product that we're trying to design, because one thing we found in our conversations around the utility industry as a whole, that, there's a lot of attention and resources that go to the big players, right, in every state. And I was really blown away with how many municipalities and co-ops there are in the country. I mean, There's a ton. And I think the challenge that, at least from our perspective and from my perspective, is that the challenge that you guys have is always a function of, available resources, cost-effective solutions, managing to a different sort of audience that you have to, from a regulatory perspective. So I realized like that combination can be so challenging for you guys to solve what you need to solve for and in the constraints that you have. So it's drawn our attention a little bit because we just think that, it's an interesting problem to solve. And there's a lot to solve because there's so many little entities out there, but that are controlling major parts of the transmission infrastructure. So yeah, we'll definitely have to chat about that more offline. I'd love to
Love that. Yeah, like 900 co-ops. That's not even, your munis. So
yeah,
Probably
exactly.
3 times as many munis.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you from Montana, like kind of originally born and raised?
5th generation Montanan. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
This is gonna sound so cliche, but like the first thing that came to my mind was Yellowstone.
You're not the only one. Everybody's
Yeah.
like, have you seen that show?
Yeah, have you seen the show? It's such.
Is Montana like that? And I'm like, well, I don't know anybody who's killed anyone. So no.
Right. You're like, it's not like that, but it's
Not like
beautiful.
that.
Yeah.
But
Wow,
ranching,
for
it
sure.
does give that great perspective about what ranching is like and how tough it can be. So, I mean, it's dramatized, obviously.
Why did you now have you been with the co-op that you're with? Have you been there your entire career?
For the majority of it, I've been with the cooperative for almost 12 years. And I started out actually as a part-time cashier, which is kind of a fun story to tell people.
Yeah, please tell us.
When I finished in engineering, I did a little consulting. When I finished my degree, I did some consulting and worked for an environmental consultant and did platting and all of that, and kind of faced these challenges in that where I felt like maybe I wasn't good enough to do engineering, and just so much doubt kind of creeps in your mind as a new graduate. It's hard to get that confidence. And so I went to the local bank and decided I'm going to be a vault teller or I'm going to be a teller for a while. It feels like something I'm totally going to be good at. Let's go. And I did that for 4 years. And then when a job opened at the utility, I was sort of a good fit for a cashier because I spent a lot of time handling money. And so I worked as a part-time cashier for the first 2 years while I was at the utility. And so I've kind of started at the ground level and moved up
Wow.
through the utility. Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive.
So when you moved into veg management, you did something I think's unique. You were one of the first graduates of the Utility Veg Management Professional Development Program, and you're one of the very few that are recognized as a certified, help me with the title, Utility
Certified
Vegetation Management.
Utility Vegetation Manager.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's pretty neat. As an engineer, you decided to go and get the training.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about why you did it and what you think of the program, because there's others out there that might be considering it.
That's awesome. Yeah. When I started, obviously, in the vegetation management department, I knew really nothing about what I was about to get myself into. And I picked up the Utility Arborist Newsline, and I saw this advertisement for the Utility Vegetation Management Certificate. And at that time, it was through Southern Alberta. And as I got into the first course, I realized, this is the first actual class. They had a test group, I think, that went through and graduated a group of 6 or so or more. And then our class, I think we started around 30 of us that went through that first flagship class at Southern Alberta. And it was probably the best decision that I ever made. And sometimes those are just accidental, like you just fall into the best training. And I had 29 mentors, like just built into the class, who were telling me, well, this is how you do it. And it's so nice coming in just as with a clean slate with that group of people and getting to chat with them about what they do at their bigger utilities, what they do as contractors, what they do, just their best practices and what they've developed. I went to school with Canadian students, and I went to school with folks that work for Salt River Project, and they honestly were my best teachers, and I wouldn't be where I'm at in my program without those courses and those connections.
How much?
Very good.
How much is the thought leadership like with agencies? You're in Montana. How much have you pulled kind of intellectual understanding and what other programs are doing and incorporated into like what you guys are up to?
Oh, I would say I've acquired a lot. It's just little nuggets here and there, and you sort of take whatever they're using and morph it into what works for you. You'll hear an idea and you expand on it, You'll hear how they monitor their crews or how they audit their crews and why that's important, why that's an important component of the program, how they run contracts and why it's important to do it a certain way versus another based on, your utility, and learning about who stakeholders are and how really to engage them. So the overview of really the whole entire certificate is program management and how that applies to utility vegetation management. And it really gave me the building blocks of understanding and speaking to my managers and my board members about the program and how to best move it forward.
That's an interesting thing because, managing up is as important as managing into the field.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when I came on board, we were really on kind of a reactive maintenance cycle. It wasn't anything that was planned out. And so that was in 2017. And we've started cycle maintenance. We've started to look at targeted approaches and all the different methodology for managing a vegetation management program. And the ways to do it are as wide and as many as there are utilities. And so it's been a great experience for me. And then coming into facilitating, which I'm facilitating now with the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, some of those courses, primarily the integrated vegetation management portion of that. Every time I go through a course with students, I learn something new that I didn't learn the first time, which they might not know. They're teaching me as well. And particularly some of the students that are from California, and they're just regulated different. And so I've been able to just learn kind of nationwide and in North America the differences in vegetation management based on region.
Yeah, you nailed that one. Just as we move from west to east, the problem sets are so different, the topography is so different, the regulatory oversight is so different. Like, it's even for us, as we've built a company that's servicing such a wide variety of clients, everything has to be somewhat curated because it's, you could have two neighboring states with totally different objectives, goals, risks, all that sort of thing. So that's really interesting to hear from your perspective, just even in the education environment.
So I'm curious, Amanda, do you have both transmission and distribution?
I just have actual transmission. So we're at 69 kVA and below. And so Bonneville is our supplier, and they are sitting at the 230. So they're the FERC regulated. But what's really nice is just within that coursework is learning the differences between that and learning what we have to do and what the future could look like for what we have to do. Because right now as a distribution co-op, it's different than, any kind of transmission that's regulated by FERC. So that may change. I don't know what the industry will look like with wildfire and storms and environmental changes. So just getting a chance to learn that and learning where they're at compared to where we're at is high value.
May I assume you've built a wildfire mitigation plan?
Yes. We completed that just a little over a year ago. We're about to go into our first review and look at ways that we're going to kind of make it less of a document and more of an actionable plan, because I think maybe the natural place that you fall into with a wildfire mitigation plan is that you have to do it for insurance or for some other reason the state requires it. And then you get into it where you're like, okay, well, how do we actually use the plan? And what
Yeah,
are
wait a minute, I don't get this.
we wrote this because we were doing everything. Now, what are some goals we can do that
Right.
actually make a wildfire mitigation plan better? And
Move it out of the classroom into the field.
totally.
In terms of the size of your co-op, could you compare it in terms of where it is relative to other co-op peers, small utilities? Like, what's the scale, distribution miles, that kind of thing for our audience? Can you contextualize that?
Yeah, from a co-op perspective, we are considered a large co-op. I would think, we have 73,000 meters, 5,000 square miles of service territory. We maintain about 1,700 miles of overhead line, which is a lot. And it's a lot for this kind of program. I think we came out to like 14 meters per mile, which is actually pretty dense for a co-op too. So,
Yeah, I'm surprised. I think of Montana as big open spaces. Nobody's out there.
yeah,
But obviously I'm wrong.
we're all in the same place. There's not many of us. We're all together.
In one city.
Yeah.
So what were the challenges? I'm curious about the wildfire mitigation plans for smaller co-ops. It has to be a challenge to put together.
Great. That's a great question. I think for me, the biggest challenge was making sure that what we were putting in the plan were things that we were actually doing and were able to do if we weren't. And after a year, I looked at it and I could see that there were things where we really need to probably stand up a team that makes sure we do all these things and the right people are in the right seats on the bus. And I think there was a bit of fear going into it because you don't want to be that person who creates a wildfire mitigation plan and then doesn't execute it, right? So, yeah, it's great to have one. You probably want that for your insurance, but are you working the plan?
Yeah, those documents can be, I've seen, obviously with some of the bigger utilities, like your eyes glaze over because the document's just like huge. So you bring up an interesting point of, how to make it something that's like living versus just like dormant and, you need to do it kind of deal. So in your time at the co-op, can you maybe describe for us and this will help us also understand like Montana as a region, what's the most complex thing you've had to face, as a small utility, kind of during your time there?
Well, starting out by myself, the program started out very small. It was me as a supervisor, and we had one in-house tree crew and 2 part-time contract tree crews. And so it was way under-resourced for the work that needed to be done. And I had found that to be very challenging. And another part of it is we live in an area that's natural beauty. People escape here. It's something people, have a certain viewpoint on, I would say, with it being Glacier Park and just so much natural beauty here, and finding the balance between doing what we need to do and what our members and the public expect to see, and how to be good stewards of that, and really just prove, that we really care about the resources and that we want to network with all the agencies out there. And it can be so much to spread for one person. You end up spreading yourself very thin, trying to get to know the folks at the Forest Service and DNRC and building relationships with them, because there's a big fear factor, probably, I can speak for a lot of cooperatives, in the liability that's involved if our facilities are the ignition source for a fire. And so it's probably the biggest challenge. And that was sort of a lot of challenges.
No,
the biggest challenge is we have a lot of challenges.
No, not at all. Like I kind of,
Yeah.
what I took away from what you said was just balancing, a variety of stakeholders and knowing that the liability is there and helping folks understand that while still managing to the aesthetic of beautiful, green and forested areas. as a homeowner, I have a funny story. So I'm Canadian and born and raised in the Toronto, Greater Toronto area. And I remember one time, I didn't know what was going on, but I had a beautiful tree, and they marked it, and they cut it. And like somebody came by one day and they cut it. And I didn't know, so I didn't even know that it was marked, or I guess it was encroaching or something. And so I was like, at the time I was visibly upset. This is before I actually had any understanding of this industry. And now I'm like, oh, I get it now, right? Like I understand. I was like, there's this balance of making sure that, you're protecting the infrastructure, but at the same time, people love, they love their trees. California is a great example,
Yeah.
Also, so it's tricky.
It's sort of interesting because the wildfires in California have really been, I don't want to say like a blessing for us, but in a way they've held benefit for small utilities east of them, because we really see what they're dealing with and can learn without going through those pain points. And it's benefited us in a way that I am very grateful for just being able to see, what's being done after the reaction to that, because we can do that as a preventative measure before we're even forced to, because in a way we will probably be regulated to do things that they're doing eventually. And to just have a little bit of a crystal ball, if you will, on what we need to do in that arena it's been a big benefit.
I think you're spot on. I think, frankly, I don't think a lot of people knew about utility vegetation management until this all sort of, what was happening in California. And I really feel for all the utilities and the residents, and it's complex. It's such a big bear of a problem to deal with, and I think everyone's doing the best that they can to figure it out. But it brought a huge spotlight from for everybody, right? And it helped not just from a wildfire perspective, but I think from an event perspective, like whether it's a hurricane, a storm, a fire, all of a sudden grid reliability became that much more in focus, and we can see the expectations of PUCs and vegetation management budgets from west to east have started to expand, because I think there's a better understanding and a desire to, like you said, to be preventative. So I think the data and the actions that are following what happened out west is very consistent with what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think even it's countrywide, nationwide. We're seeing a reaction in Washington and seeing infrastructure funding coming and grid resilience funding coming, and we hope to take advantage of that. And I know other utilities and cooperatives are too. And so I see a lot of attention on it, and just sort of public education about all of that. And it's good for the industry. It's good for all of us pushing these plans forward.
What do you hope to sort of, first of all, again, congratulations on your UAA appointment. But in terms of your involvement, like what sort of impact or mark are you looking to make with that great organization? Obviously, Phil was a former president of that and led that initiative very, very well under his tenure. So what are some of your goals with that organization?
I've been pretty involved with UAA. I really am involved with the Women in Utility Vegetation Management, and I'll continue to do that. It's really near and dear to my heart. And recently started working with the member engagement portion of the Utility Arborist Association with the focus on cooperatives. And I truly hope to engage cooperatives within the organization and bring them into the fold, because I've seen so many benefits being a member of that organization. I've had people who support me and support the program that I'm working on, and just to feel that overwhelming support, it can feel really lonely, like what you're doing, and people who you see the light in their eyes, they light up and understand what you're doing is it's been a great organization for me to be a part of. And so to be able to give back and put my heart into it in a way that could move it forward for the future generations is just an exciting prospect for me.
I congratulate you. You're giving back. I think you said you're a proctor of those facilitator. I don't remember what the title was.
Facilitator.
I should have known that. And you're working with the UAA. One of the things we try to look for the industry leaders to have as guests, and that is a consistent theme. They're all giving back in some fashion.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess a true sign of leadership.
Yeah. I hope to continue on with education as part of something within the UAA as well. And I think my official assignment will be the champion for the safety committee, which is very well established. And so I could see myself having to get up to speed with all of that talent. And so I'm excited to work with all of them as well.
Oh, that's great. Well, we'll end up, I'm sure, seeing each other, I believe, Pittsburgh this year. So
yes,
that'll be really, really exciting. Well, before we kind of wrap up here, I definitely wanted to thank you for making time to chat with us today. And as we I'd love to have you on again as we present some of our kind of municipal co-op focused solutions, so we can kind of just have a broad conversation and you can kind of rip us apart on terms of.
I would love that.
Yeah.
To rip
I'll give you
apart,
feedback. I'm not a ripper.
No.
I'm more of a feedbacker.
A feedbacker.
Yeah.
No, I think it's. I'm so fascinated by just, again, once I learned, as I'm like you, I'm new. I'm not new like you, but just I'm so new to this overall space from the last few years that just coming across so many interesting things, and I'm very fascinated by the municipal co-op segment of the market. So you and I will have lots to chat about offline and hopefully in Pittsburgh
I
as well.
have a huge love for co-ops, and so I would be happy to share any of that.
Yeah, no, it's great. I look forward to getting your feedback. Yeah,
okay.
Your feedback. So, but Amanda, thanks for making time today. This was a lovely chat, and
thank you for having me.
Of course, we look forward to
it.
continuing it. Yeah, absolutely.
I've been watching every episode, and I've seen.
No.
Oh no, they're fantastic. I've seen all the heroes of the utility arborist industry on your show, and I'm like, oh my gosh, these are big shoes to fill.
No, you were fantastic, and I think your perspective again is, I think you might be the first guest we've had that speaks from the position of the co-op and the munis, and so we hope that we can continue to diversify our conversations and again, like, include some of the smaller players and their needs and requirements as part of the broader discussion, because we just think sometimes, big always gets the look, and we're trying to help change that a little bit. So.
Well, the cooperative way is like all of us with our small voices equal big.
Oh yeah, aggregation is key. Aggregation is key. So.
Cooperation among co-ops.
yeah, cooperation, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you very much, and again, I look forward to seeing you and meeting you in person eventually.
Awesome.
Thank you, Amanda.
Same here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of the Trees and Lines podcast, brought to you by Iapetus Infrastructure Services. If you like the show, please give us a rating of 5 stars on Apple or Spotify. If you have any questions or comments on any of our episodes or ideas for topics or guests in the future, we'd love to hear from you. Please contact us at treesandlines@iapetusllc.com.